My 3 wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 32 Son-in-law. Hey. You finally woke up. My son-in-law. Did you enjoy sinking your fangs into my daughter's neck? Suddenly. I feel my whole body go numb, fear. That's what I felt. For the first time in my life. I felt the purest feeling of fear. My heart was beating wildly. My instincts screamed to run. But I couldn't. My body was paralyzed. I could feel my whole body in a cold sweat as I looked at the woman in front of me. I thought. A monster, a real monster was sitting in front of me. I swallowed hard. I could feel, yes. I could feel with all my being that this monster could kill me at any moment. In front of her. I was just an insect. In front of this woman. I was just a newborn that she could easily step on. I clenched my fists tightly. Fear. Yes. I was scared. But I refused to be paralyzed. I bit my tongue hard and tasted the blood. But I didn't care. The pain made me regain control of my body. I felt an irritating feeling in my heart. A feeling that told me not to bow my head to anyone. My pride won't let me. But besides this irritating feeling I had in my heart, I had another feeling screaming furiously. I look into the red eyes of the woman who was smiling at me. And I display a smile so big that my face distorts unnaturally. Oh, her smile grew like my smile. A strong warrior. A strong warrior was in front of me. An opponent to fight. Ah, I'm excited. My whole body is screaming in euphoria to fight her. I could feel it. But I knew an unchanging truth. I was too weak to have a fight that will satisfy my desire. And that irritated me. That frustrated me. Mother. When did you arrive? The woman ignored her daughter's question and kept looking at me. This is really a shame. I said. Disappointed. Why is this a shame? She asked in curiosity. I'm too weak to fight you. That's really a shame. I sighed at the end. I could feel the whole atmosphere in the room freeze unnaturally. And everyone in the room was looking at me with a stunned face. PFFT. The woman's instinct to kill disappeared. And soon she started to laugh. Ha. I didn't understand why she was laughing. I looked to Ruby for answers and saw that she had a shocked face as she looked at her mom. She didn't seem to understand why her mom was laughing. Suddenly the woman stopped laughing and got up from the couch. Then she looked at me again. Interesting. Interesting. She displayed a distorted smile. I like you. Huh. Thanks. I didn't understand why she said that. I looked at the woman in front of me more closely. She looked like a more mature version of Ruby. She has pale skin, blood-red eyes, long red hair that reaches her waist, and a curvy body that her clothes couldn't hide. She had the most enormous breasts I've ever seen. She seemed to have bigger breasts than Ruby. I think it was H-cup. She was shorter than me by a few inches. I don't know how tall I am now. But I seem to be bigger than before. She was beautiful. Beautiful would be a little enough compliment to describe all her beauty. A hot beauty. A crazy beauty. A woman who would make any man go crazy with just a simple gesture. But she wasn't just that. She was a warrior. A bloodthirsty warrior. A warrior who had some screws loose in her head just like me. That's the impression I had of her. She approaches me and starts looking me up and down. Oh. It looks like your evolution gave you more potential than I expected. Interesting. For a moment, I saw her eyes glow red. I hear Violet's voice. This bitch. One day I'm going to kill her. I withdraw my attention from the woman. Look at the couch. And see my beloved wife with an irritated face. I ignore the woman in front of me and walk over to Violet. Hey. Her face distorted a little. But I didn't care. I stop in front of the couch and see Violet, who was wearing only a black nightgown. She was mumbling in a distorted tone about how she was going to kill that woman who was Ruby's mother. I sit down on the couch and pull Violet onto my lap. Kya. She squealed in surprise. Darling. She looked at me confused. But soon her face filled with genuine joy and hugged me possessively. Darling. 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 I missed you. I said honestly as I hugged her. I felt Violet's body shake. And she looks at me with a tearful face. I was worried that you wouldn't wake up anymore. I wiped the tears from Violet's eye. And I hug her tighter and lay her head on my chest. Shish. I'm here. Okay. While Violet and Victor are in their own world, Sasha approaches Ruby and speaks in a low voice. He just ignored your mother. She commented in disbelief. Yes. Ruby looks at her mom. She was hoping her mom was pissed off. But to her surprise, her mom had a happy smile on her face. Seeing that smile, Ruby's body shivered. She knew her mother very well. And from what she understands of her mother, she only shows that smile when she finds something interesting. Luna. Suddenly Scathach spoke. Why yes. Luna squealed in surprise. Luna, who was silent along with Natalia, Maria, and Kagaya in the corner of the room, runs to Scathach's side. Thanks for contacting me. You did a good job. But now I want you to do something for me. Scathach whispered something in Luna's ear. Yes. Ma'am. Luna responded. Like a soldier responding to his superior. Then she ran out of the room. When Ruby heard her mother's words, she looked at Luna with a look that said she would give her punishment for having a big mouth. Huh. Violet, who was in her world with Victor, suddenly looks at Scathach, who yelled loudly. Bitch. Be gone. Why are you still here? The room will stink of antiquity. Shoo. Shoo. Hey. Looks like you want to get punished again. Brat. Scathach's eyes sparkled a little. Violet's body shuddered. And she hugged Victor tighter. Darling. I'm being bullied. She doesn't learn. Huh. Doesn't she understand that your mother is vindictive? Sasha commented as she looked at Violet. A bit annoyed. She thought. She's taking advantage of the situation. Well. She's Violet. She doesn't have any sense. Ruby added. I look at Violet and see her face saying. I want to be spoiled. She was so cute I couldn't resist. I put my face close to her and kiss her. Humph. She looked surprised for a moment. But as soon as she kissed me again, our tongues began to battle for dominance. Slowly. My bloodlust exploded. I felt my teeth start to change and also felt my eyes shift to blood red. I stop kissing Violet and look at the two voices. As soon as I see Ruby and Sasha with red faces, I could clearly feel what they wanted. I could feel it from our connection that got so much stronger than before. Eat. I spoke in a low voice. But strangely my voice resonated throughout the room. Oh. Scathach displayed a curious smile. Suddenly, Sasha disappears and appears at my right side. As soon as she opens her mouth and bites my neck, I felt my blood drain. Violet puts her face on the other side of my neck and licks me. Then, she bites me too. Let go of me. I heard Ruby's furious scream. When I look at Ruby, I see my wife is being held by her mother. Interesting. She said. She was completely lost in the desire for blood. I suddenly feel a desire to be full. And that desire has taken over my actions. And that desire was affecting my wives too. Violet. Sasha. And I look at Ruby's mom. Release. We speak in unison. The woman's body trembled a little. And then she lets go of Ruby. Huh. The woman exclaimed in surprise. She looked at her hand and realized she wasn't holding her daughter anymore. Ruby disappears and appears on my left side. Darling. Darling, soon. She bites my collarbone. The moment she bites me, I feel complete. When the desire to feel full has been sated, my bloodlust exploded again. I couldn't think of anything. I was very thirsty. And I just wanted my wife's blood. I opened my mouth and bite Violet's neck. Ah. Darling. Seeing Victor feasting on the blood of his 3 wives. Scathach's smile grew distorted. Kagaya. Explain to me everything that happened from the moment that Victor was turned. She ordered. Kagaya approaches Scathach. She looks at the woman for a few seconds as if thinking about something. Then she makes a decision. She is Ruby's mother. She has a right to know the truth. It all happened the day Violet turned Victor into a vampire. Kagaya began to explain in a neutral tone all the events she knew. My 3 wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 33 Son-in-Law 2. Hearing everything that happened, Scathach's smile just grew and grew. When Kagaya finished explaining everything that had happened since the moment Victor turned into a vampire. What's his blood type? She asked curiously. RH null blood. The golden blood. PFFT, ha 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 ha. She started laughing like she was crazy. Kagaya just looked at the woman, wondering if this madwoman was right in her head. And to think, PFFT, and to think that history would repeat itself with my daughter. Ha 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 ha. She looked very happy for some reason. Countess Scarthad knows about something. She stopped laughing for a moment and looked at Kagaya with a slight smile on her face. Who knows? I'm quite old. Maybe I'm just crazy. Kagaya's face twitched a little. She didn't expect her to respond like that. Scathach exhibited a soft smile on her face, took a deep breath, and let the air out of her lungs. It's been a while since I laughed like that. When was the last time? I think about 500 years ago. Kagaya, seeing the woman's H-cup breast sway as she made this simple gesture, just clicked her annoyed tongue. Scathach walks slowly towards Victor with a smile on her face. She sits on the sofa that was next to the one that held Victor and his wives. She crossed her legs sensually and spoke with killing intent leaking from her body. That's enough. Have some kind of respect for yourself. Doing that in front of everyone is inappropriate. The instinct of the four exploded. Warning of danger. They quickly broke apart and rose from the couch, prepared to fight. The reaction is fast, but not good enough. Mother. Wipe your mouth. Daughter. How inappropriate. Ruby's face turns bright red, and she quickly licks her lips. I can't believe I did this in front of my mother. Sasha Fulgur. I hear your mother lost her vampire count title on some stupid bet. As expected of her. Yes. As expected of her. Sasha nodded in disdain as she licked her lips. Violet Snow. I heard your father woke up. Do you intend to come home? Scathach asked. I am not. My house is next to my darling, Violet spoke as she hugged Victor. I looked at Violet and smiled kindly, then patted her head. He, seeing the goofy smile on her face. My heart melts into cuteness. I look at Kagaya. Kagaya, do your magic. Understanding what I mean. Kagaya nods, and then disappears into darkness. Then she covers Violet's body in darkness. Like magic. Violet's outfit has changed from a nightgown to an outfit that looks like a cosplay she always wore. Done. Good job, Kagaya. I said as I stroked Kagaya's head. Her body shook a little, and she turned her face away. Soon. I stop petting Kagaya and sit down on the couch again. Violet sits on my right side. Ruby sits on my left side. And Sasha, who was a little embarrassed about the whole situation, sits next to Ruby. And Kagaya was behind me along with Natalia and Maria. I look at the woman. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. Right. I display a gentle smile. My name is Victor Walker. Nice to meet you, mother-in-law. Again. I feel the atmosphere around me tense up, as if I've said something wrong. Hey, the woman displays a dangerous smile and licks her lips. Nice to meet you, Victor. I am Ruby's mother. My name is Scathach Scarlet. Now that we've introduced ourselves, let's talk about important matters. I keep smiling. Oh. She looks curious about what I'm going to say. I want to ask your permission to be with Ruby. The woman's smile suddenly disappears. Darling. This is too fast. Ruby looked at me with fear evident on her face. Yes. Darling. You must talk to my mother first. Violet spoke jealously. Idiot. That's not what she's talking about. Read the room. Sasha yelled at Violet. Hua. Violet was confused. Question marks started appearing around me. And I was confused why they were reacting like that. Brat. Don't you understand your situation? Ruby's mother spoke in a neutral tone. I understand my situation, I said as I looked at her. I married your daughter. And I didn't ask your permission for that. Right. Indeed. That's it. She looked at me with a stunned expression. Don't worry. I intended to do this with each of my wives. I commented with a small smile. Hey. She flashed a small smile. What are you going to do if I don't allow you to be with Ruby? Mother. Silence. Ruby. Her eyes glowed red for a moment. Why yes. Ruby recoiled. Answer me. She looked at me again. The answer to that question was simple. I don't intend to do anything. Huh. Ruby and her mother exclaimed in unison. I continue with a slight smile on my face. At the end of it all, Your opinion on this matter doesn't matter much. I commented honestly. Brat. I interrupt. Ruby is already married to me. What I'm doing here is just a formality. Whether you allow it to happen or not, it doesn't matter anymore. I look at Ruby. All that matters is Ruby's willingness. If she wants to be with me, then I'll make it happen. Darling. Ruby spoke with a red face and a small happy smile on her face. It was pretty obvious she wasn't against it. Brat. You're talking too loud for someone who doesn't have the strength. Scathach spoke in a venomous tone as her killing intent seeped from her body. She looked quite annoyed. I look at Scathach. And I explain. Yes. I'm weak now. But sometimes you can't solve some situations with brute force. Hey. She flashed a sneer. If I kill you now, you can never be with my daughter. I saw Sasha, Ruby, and Violet's faces distorted in anger for a few seconds. Think with me. If you kill me now, what will happen? I asked in a neutral tone. I would bring my daughter back home. That's all. What about her bloodlust? You know the ritual. She can handle it. After all, she is my daughter. If I can handle this bloodlust, she can too. Oh. She lost her husband. Come to think of it, I don't know much about my wife's families. The only one I know a little better is Sasha's family. Naive. I commented. Hua. Her face was distorted. You are naive. Your way of thinking is very naive. I said. Then I continue. Ruby isn't you. If I disappear, what guarantees she won't go crazy from bloodlust? She was silent as she looked at me. And even worse, what guarantees she won't hate you? I asked, smiling a little. Huh. She put on a confused face. She would hate me. Her own mother. That is impossible. Why is it impossible? You've already lived a long time. Right. From the way you speak. I can say that. I said and added. Then you must know how easily a child can hate their parents. She bites her lip. And I see her eyes glow blood red. That's why I said. It doesn't matter if you approve of Ruby and me. In the end, I'll still stick with Ruby. I spoke neutrally and added. Smiling happily. I just became something irreplaceable for Ruby. And you can't do anything about it. Indeed, Scathach lowered her head a little. Her bangs hiding her eyes. And soon she started biting her nail. I could feel Ruby shaking a little as she held my hand. I looked away briefly and saw that Sasha was very alert. It looked like she was ready to do something if the situation called for it. Darling. This is dangerous. You've said too much. Violet spoke seriously in a low voice. I just smile and pat Violet's head. I look at Scathach again. Scathach scarlet. She looks at me. And when I see her eye gleam, for a moment, I feel my whole body tremble with fear and excitement. But then, I display a big smile that shows all my sharp teeth. Wouldn't killing me be a waste? Waste. The moment I saw you. Do you know what I feel? Finally, I decide to be honest. She kept looking at me. Afraid. I feel scared. But I also feel disappointed and frustrated. Oh. She displayed a big smile. I get up from the couch and walk slowly over to Scathach. I kneel on the floor and look into her red eyes. I touch it lightly and caress her face. A strong opponent was in front of me. But I didn't have enough strength to face it. So I couldn't satisfy my desire to fight. This is really frustrating. Her red eyes that were glowing seemed to lose intensity. Then her smile grew in a distorted way that showed all her sharp teeth. This smile just made me more excited. But this is really disappointing. Indeed. I agreed. I stop stroking her face and pull away. When I look at my wives, I just saw them looking at me shocked. Even Natalia, Maria, and Kagaya, who are always stoic, were looking at me with their mouths open. Why are they reacting like this? I thought. When I sit down on the couch again and look at Scathach, I was taken aback by the gentle expression she was showing. She was so beautiful. I feel Violet and Ruby pinching my leg. And as soon as I wake up from my stupor, I look at my wives and see my wives' annoyed expressions. Ruby, my beloved daughter, I allow you to be with Victor. She spoke with a sensual smile. She looked completely different from a few moments ago. Thanks, Mother. Ruby thanked her. I decided something too. Suddenly Scathach disappears and appears in front of me. And with a simple gesture, she attacks my stomach. Cough. I was breathless from the sudden attack. And soon I felt another attack on my neck that made me lose consciousness. Everything happened so fast that no one could react. Mother. Ruby squealed in surprise. What are you doing? Bitch. Drop my darling. Violet yelled angrily. Realizing what was happening, lightning starts to crackle in Sasha's body. And she screams angrily. Let go of my husband. Scathach ignores Violet and Sasha's threats. She holds Victor like a sack of potatoes and speaks with a sensual smile as she licks her lips. I'm kidnapping my son-in-law. Huh. The three women exclaimed in unison. Before they could do anything, Scathach disappears along with Victor. My three wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 34 Victor has been kidnapped. Bitch. Violet screamed in uncontrolled fury. Her face was distorted with rage. And the fire poured out of her body uncontrollably. Realizing the danger of getting close to Violet, Maria, Natalia, Ruby, and Sasha quickly run away from Violet. Calm down. Violet. Ruby screamed. And when she heard the sound of thunder, she looked at Sasha, who was covered in lightning. She looked like she was about to do something. You too. Sasha. Calm down. Calm down. Sasha's face twisted in anger. My husband has been kidnapped. How can I be calm? Ruby started to get angry. You fools. Ruby's voice started to get cold. And the room started to get terribly cold. Then she spoke in a tone that made the maids shiver. Have you forgotten where you are? Control your powers. Listening to what Ruby said, Sasha and Violet bite their lips in frustration and regain consciousness. So they quickly rein in her powers. Ruby sighs. This place has protection. But what if you decide to get out of hand now? Do you want to hurt Darling's parents? You're right, Sasha sighs. What should we do now? Violet doesn't say anything. She just looks at Ruby, waiting for her words. My mom won't hurt our darling. Ruby started to explain. Remember what happened in the past when a man she didn't think was suitable approached me? They were exterminated. Sasha replied. Wrong. Their entire family was wiped out. Violet added. See. Ruby smiled. My mom approved of Victor. That means he'll be fine. I think. Huh. You're not sure. Violet raised her voice. Violet. You know my mother. She is very unpredictable. Violet bit her lip in frustration as she muttered various forms of torture she intended to do to anyone who touched Victor. I think she's going to train Victor. Sasha, who was a little calmer, spoke. You're right. She likes people who have potential. Ruby nodded. And my darling is a man with great potential. What do you think will happen to him? Violet asked as her eyes darkened. Ruby was silent. She didn't want to answer that question. This got interesting. Right. Natalia suddenly spoke with a smile on her face. Violet. Ruby. And Sasha looked at Natalia with a neutral gaze. Natalia. We should go home. Violet said. I know. But you guys need to sort something out first. Natalia said as she pointed up. You're right. Darling's parents are going to be worried. Ruby said. How are we supposed to do this? I don't think telling the truth would be the ideal option. Sasha asked. Then she adds. A few days ago, Violet had to lie and tell Victor's mom over the phone that she was going on her honeymoon with her son. I think this lie won't work again. I don't know how long it will take. But this time, I think it will take months for him to come home. Ruby puts her hand on her chin and starts to think about what to do. Where is Kagaya? Violet asked. Oh. She's in Victor's shadow. Natalia replied. The three wives all opened their mouths in shock. She's fast, Sasha spoke. As expected. Ruby smiled. Good job. Kagaya. I'm going to raise her salary. Violet displayed a happy smile. Why are you so happy? Sasha asked curiously. Kagaya is a dedicated maid. She will send me Darling's location. Oh. You're right. Sasha nods in agreement. Violet. Sasha. Use your head. Ruby spoke in a neutral tone. Hua. Ruby explains. If my mom kidnapped Victor, she probably took him to that place. Fuck. Violet didn't like it at all. That place. Huh. Sasha puts her hand on her chin. And she looks at Ruby. Sasha's eyes suddenly darken. Ruby. Are your foster sisters in that place? Violet turns to face Ruby. She has the same face as Sasha. Ruby started to sweat a little when she saw Sasha and Violet's faces. But soon she replied, yes. They'll be in that place. Fuck. Violet's anger explodes again. And soon her body is covered in fire. She looks at Natalia. Open the portal. I'm going back home. I have to protect my darling. Yes. Lady Violet. Natalia wasted no time. She snaps her finger and then smiles. Done. Before Ruby and Sasha could react, Violet opened the door and walked through a portal that looked like the galaxy. Sasha's body started to crackle with lightning. But before she could follow Violet, her body was frozen by Ruby. You won't run away now. You must work something out with me first. Natalia. Close the portal. Yes. Lady Ruby. Natalia snaps her finger. And soon the portal that looked like a galaxy disappeared. Ruby unfreezes Sasha. Why did you stop me? Before Ruby can say anything, she asks Natalia. What is someone from Clan Aliath doing with Violet? Shouldn't you just serve the king's family? This is a secret. Natalia smiled gently. Tisk. Sasha clicked her tongue in annoyance. Then, knowing she won't get Natalia's answer, she loses interest. She thinks for a moment and looks at Maria. Her eyes glow a little blood red. And she says, you can act normally. Maria's body trembles a little. And soon she regains control of her actions. Why did you do that? Maria asked in a cold, suspicious tone. I just don't want you to die for a random vampire when we get back home. Sasha spoke in an emotionless tone. Hua. Maria didn't understand why she did it. Ruby, who was watching all this, said, come on, Sasha. We have to go somewhere. Okay. Sasha agreed. Natalia. Wait for us here. We're going to need your skill. And keep an eye on her. Ruby pointed at Maria. Natalia bowed a little. Your wish is my command. Lady Ruby. The evening that same day, I was trying to guess why you needed me to change my clothes into this simple outfit. Sasha spoke in disbelief as she stared at the door of Victor's parents' house. Sasha was wearing simple pants that looked too tight on her thighs. She was wearing a long brown shirt with a V neckline that showed a little bit of her F-cup breasts. Why you are crazy? Sasha spoke in a stutter while her face was a little red with embarrassment. Ruby was wearing simple black pants. She was wearing a simple red shirt that could barely hide her G-cup breasts. Why yes. Ruby's face seemed to be frozen. Ruby. Sasha approached Ruby. Are you nervous? She asked as she looked at Ruby's face stoic. Nervous. She stuttered. Seeing the smile on Sasha's face, she said, I'm fine. Shish. Speak quietly. Sasha yelled. Ruby just looked at Sasha with a blank expression. Let's get this over with. She spoke in a neutral tone. Ruby clicked on Victor's doorbell. They heard the bell. And the two women wait anxiously for someone to open the door. I am going. Suddenly they hear a woman's voice. Both girls' hearts nearly came out of their mouth when they heard the voice of the woman who was clearly Victor's mother. When the door opens, and they see a beautiful woman with long black hair and sapphire blue eyes, they can't help but think that this woman is a lot like Victor. Who are you? The woman looked at the two women as if sizing them up. Then she looked at Ruby's bust for a moment. And she thought, so big. Is she bigger than mine? The woman looked at Sasha's legs and thought, her legs are so thick. She looked at the appearance of the two women again and thought, I don't remember meeting a blue-eyed blonde with such thick legs and a green-eyed redhead with breasts bigger than mine. Ruby's face was so red at this point that her brain wasn't thinking straight. Mother. We are Victor's two wives. Nice to meet you. Hua. The woman's brain stopped working. Ruby. Sasha's face turned red with embarrassment. She approaches Ruby's ear. What are you doing, idiot? Ruby looks at Sasha with red eyes, almost crying, and speaks. I don't know anymore. Fix the misunderstanding quick. She whispered, almost screaming. Why don't you help too? Ruby whispered. Don't ask for the impossible. The woman has come out of her stupor. And she looks at the two women again. What did you two say? Sasha was startled by the sudden question. Mother. We are Victor's wives. Nice to meet you. Idiot. Ruby yelled. Oh. My boy has 2 more wives. She didn't think it was a lie. As an experienced lawyer, she knew when someone was lying. And these 2 girls weren't. Suddenly the woman touched her head and looked sick. And slowly, she starts to fall. Mother. Ruby and Sasha yell in unison. They quickly grab the woman and see that she was unconscious. My head is hurting. Where am I? I look around and see I was in a room I didn't know. The room looked old. I felt like I walked into those old movies. Hey. You finally woke up, stranger. Suddenly I heard a woman's voice. I look towards where I heard the woman's voice. And I see a girl with wild long red hair. She was on the ceiling of the room standing as if gravity didn't affect her. But then, the girl fell to the ground and stood up. She was very short. I think she must have been Kagaya's height. She was wearing a simple red dress. She looked at me with a big smile on her face. Suddenly, I remember what happened. And I get out of bed. Wow. You're big. I heard the girl's voice. But I ignored her. She seemed to be talking about my height. I look around and see a window. I walk towards the window. And when I see the world outside, I couldn't help asking out loud. Where in the 7 hells am? My 3 wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 35 Vampire World. A dark city with architecture that reminded me of medieval times. A place where the sun never rises. A place where every corner is an unknown danger. A city that was built thinking about the nature of vampires. That was the impression I had when I first looked at this city. Welcome to Nightingale. The city of moonlight. Stranger. I heard the girl's voice. I look at her and ask. Who are you? And where am I? Me. My name is Lacus. She replied. But suddenly another voice added. Lord Victor. You are in the world of vampires. Be careful when acting. Kagaya. I called confused. I look around. And I don't see her. But when I looked at my shadow, I saw Kagaya's shadow. She seemed to have a slight smile on her face. Kagaya. The girl looked confused. Never mind. I said. Trying to change the subject. I looked down and see that I was in a nightgown. Where are my clothes? The girl didn't say anything. She just pointed to a spot. I look at the place and see a small dresser with black clothes on top. I walk over to the clothes and pick them up. Black suit, black shirt, and black gloves. I look at the woman. Why is everything black? Mother ordered it. She spoke in a neutral tone. Scathach, I said with a smile on my face. The girl's red eyes suddenly glowed blood red. It's Countess Scathach for you. Have respect, stranger. Hey. I smiled with a distorted face and said. Where's Scathach? Suddenly the woman's killing intent exploded. She opened her mouth. And I could see that her teeth were sharper. I just looked at her with a smile on my face as I thought. Her killing intent is much weaker than Scathach. Sigh. Did Lord Victor acquire suicidal tendencies when his evolution ended? Why are you teasing her? I just didn't like the way she talked to me. That's it. I spoke out loud while ignoring the girl and putting on my clothes. After experiencing the pressure of my mother-in-law, I got numb. I think this girl is strong. But my instincts don't scream danger like when I faced my mother-in-law. Finishing dressing, I looked at the girl who was still staring at me. Won't you guide me? Finally, the girl's pressure disappeared. And she looked at me with a bit of shock on her face. What? I asked. Why aren't you being affected? Oh. I smiled a sharp toothy grin at the girl. After feeling the pressure of my mother-in-law, I got numb. And it doesn't seem to affect me anymore. Mother-in-law. She stuttered in shock. Yes. I'm Ruby's husband. Didn't you know? No. Mother just threw you in here and told me to keep an eye on you. She practically yelled red-faced. Why was she embarrassed? That's something she would do. Now, will you guide me? I asked. Yes. Ha 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 ha. If I knew you were my sister's husband, I wouldn't treat you like that. Come on. I'll take you to my mother. The girl's attitude suddenly changed when she found out I was Ruby's husband, and why did she believe me so easily? Isn't she very innocent? Walking through the house, building, mansion. I don't know anymore. This place is too big. I look around. I think this is a mansion. And Despite being a massive mansion, it was very empty. How many vampires live in this place? Me, Pepper, Sienna, Ruby, and our mom. There's Ruby's personal maid who is Luna. But she's doing something for my mom now. I see. I actually didn't understand why this place was so empty. But she didn't seem like she was going to explain anymore. Soon I hear Kagaya's voice. Unlike other count houses, Countess Scathach doesn't have many subordinates. After all, just her alone is enough to sustain the title of Vampire Count. Strange. Why aren't any count houses attacking her? I asked out loud as I ignored Lacus' confused face. They are afraid of retaliation. Countess Scathach is just too strong. And the count houses are prohibited from fighting each other on the orders of the king. But that doesn't apply to noble houses. Huh. I spoke when I remembered that my wife Sasha's family lost the count title through a game. Yes. Any noble house can request a game with a count house. But they must be prepared for retaliation if they lose. Oh. Explain. I was interested. Are you crazy? Brother-in-law. Why are you talking to yourself? Lacus asked. I like to talk to myself. I reply, smiling. Oh. She turned her face and kept walking. But I could hear. Is Ruby right in her head to choose this madman as a husband? My smile almost broke when I heard her calling me crazy. I hear Kagaya's voice again. The rules are simple. Houses with the title of counts cannot fight each other. Nor can they request a match for the noble house. After all, this would be considered an abuse of power. Because typically vampire counts are vampires who have lived over 1,000 years and have already accumulated a lot of influence and strength. If the noble house loses the game with the count's house, they have to be prepared for retaliation. Vampire counts are prohibited from attacking the lowest nobles. But there is a rule where this does not apply when the noble house attacks the vampire count's house. As I understand it, it's a system that benefits the noble houses. The families that have the title of count cannot fight each other. And they can't ask for a game to fight the noble houses that have no title either. But the houses of nobles that have no title can ask for a game with the houses of counts at any time. What are the consequences of losing this game? If the game is betting a nobleman's title, and both parties agree, the consequences of losing this game are everything. Everything. Yes. They lose everything. All riches. All possessions. And even vampires become property of the loser. What did you say? An irritating feeling started to grow in my heart. And soon it spread through my entire body. Kagaya. I called. Oh. Lacus looked interested in what was going on. Kagaya steps out of my shadow. And I look at her. What do you mean by properties? Exactly what the word means. All vampires in that house become the loser's property. They become slaves. Kagaya spoke coldly. Hey, my smile distorts. But it's not from fun. It's from hate. My beloved wife's family lost a game recently. Just imagining my wife being owned by someone else. This hatred spreads throughout my body. It was like a fire that burned throughout my body. Ha ha ha. This can only be a bad joke. Is my beloved honey someone else's property? I lean against the wall as I put my hand on my chest. My heart was beating too fast. Unforgivable. Crack. I heard the wall break with the force I put in. But I didn't care. Lord Victor. Calm down. Kagaya approaches me and starts massaging my chest. We still don't know if that's what happened. You need to calm down and control your instincts. Crack. Crack. I tighten my grip on the wall. And soon the wall collapses. I take a deep breath and force a gentle smile onto my face. You're right. Kagaya. I need to learn more. I stroked Kagaya's head. And somehow it made me calmer. Thank you. She nodded as she smiled. I look down the hall. And soon my vision changes to a blood-red world. I see 3 female vampires in this place. One female vampire was in a room that looked like a bathroom. And the other 2 were sitting in a room that looked like a bedroom. For a moment, one of the vampires who was sitting looked at me and smiled. I found her. I smile. I see Kagaya stepping into my shadow. And then I run towards my mother-in-law. When Victor ran towards Scathach, Lacus, who was nearby, just stared at the wall that had been reduced to ash when Victor left. Oh, isn't that the Snow Clan's skill? Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Two women with long red hair and red eyes were having a red tea while looking at the moon. So why did you kill your husband? Scathach asked the woman beside her in a neutral voice. The woman next to Scathach was wearing long black stockings, a short blue dress, and black high heels. He approached me just to be on good terms with you, mother, she explained. The usual, indeed. The woman nodded. Sienna, my beloved eldest daughter, why don't you create a husband? I already made this suggestion. How long ago was it? 700 years ago. Yes. Scathach smiled gently. My memory is a little bad because of my old age. She laughed seductively. Sienna just rolled her eyes when she saw her mother's attitude. I don't want to create a husband. After all, that isn't going to be something real, like I'm looking for. Hey. Despite being over 700 years old, you're still naive. I'm not naive. You know that I just want something real. And male vampires are just obsessed with things like titles. Why don't you turn a human then? Sienna's face twisted in disgust. Turning cattle into a husband? No. Thank you. Scathach rolled her eyes at the eldest foster daughter's attitude. Soon she lost interest in the subject and looked toward the bedroom entrance with a big smile on her face. Seeing her mother's smile, Sienna thought, looks like she found something interesting to do again. Suddenly the bedroom door was broken, and Victor appeared. Scathach. Victor looked at Scathach and ignored the woman beside her. Sienna's eye twitched a little when she heard the disrespectful way Victor called Scathach. As the daughter of the strongest vampire in the world, she had a lot of respect for her mother. And she didn't like someone inferior calling her so informally. And this feeling was shared by the three adoptive sisters. Sienna was about to say something, but her mother's following words left her speechless. Hey. She smiled seductively as she crossed her legs elegantly. My son-in-law. Were you so desperate to see me? My 3 wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 36. It's time to get strong. And chaos. At the same time in Victor's house. Here, I got water. Sasha offered. Tea, thanks. Anna was still very shaken. She drank all the water in one gulp. Then, when she saw Zack walking calmly through the house, she quickly got up from the couch and grabbed him. Meow. She sits down on the couch again and starts stroking Zack. Meow. Ruby and Sasha's eyes sparkled for a moment when they saw Zack. They thought he looked too cute to pet. Sasha approaches Ruby and sits beside her. Anna looks at the two women and sighs. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. Why, yes. Ruby was a little nervous. First. Did you do that? Ruby and Sasha didn't understand. I mean, what husband and wife do? Did you guys do it? Oh. Sasha exclaimed. And then she remembers the moment she sucked Victor's blood. Yes. We did. She smiled. Indeed. Ruby confirmed. Oh, I see. She stuttered a little and squeezed Zack a little harder without realizing it. Meow. Realizing what she was doing to Zack, she quickly stopped squeezing Zack. Anna takes a deep breath and asks. Why, you said you were married to my son. Right. Why, yes. Both confirmed. Violet. Does she know? For some reason, she didn't stop stuttering. Yes. She knows. Ruby confirmed. Yes. She accepted our relationship. Sasha confirmed as well. Anna looked at the two women with a blank expression. Both women were sweating profusely now. They were a little afraid of being rejected by Anna. Anna sighed again. She looked tired. Like she lost some kind of battle. How can I say, congratulations on the wedding? I guess. Huh. Anna's words took time to register in Ruby and Sasha's brains. Thanks. Ruby smiled happily. Thanks. Mother. Sasha stuttered a little. Seeing the two women's honest smiles, Anna looked like she'd suffered heart damage. I think my son will die soon. He was very lucky in a short time. Something is not right. Anna's own thoughts were confused. And to imagine that my son would have 3 wives, after the initial shock. She slowly began to come back to her personality. In our country, this is normal, Ruby said. Oh. Which country do you live in? Ruby was taken aback by the question. Legally, she is registered as Romanian. But the country she lives in is not registered on the world map. Sasha looks at Ruby with a talkative look. And then she continues. We live in a small community in Romania. Romania. But Romania doesn't have polygamy. Sasha was nervous. We live in a small community. But that's not a problem. We can get married in Alabama. Ruby looked at Sasha like she was looking at an idiot. But Alabama is for incest, Anna said. Huh. Sasha's face turned red. Suddenly Anna's face darkened in horror. Don't tell me my son went after your sister. Or even worse. He went after your mother. Does he plan to make oyakodon? And no. Sasha was more confused than she was. And her eyes began to roll. She meant that in our community, polygamy is allowed. Ruby helped Sasha. Oh. Anna's face cleared a little. Then she sighed. I need to talk to my son. That's what we came to talk about, Ruby continued. Huh. Anna looked at Ruby. Seeing Anna's look, Ruby started to get nervous again. She found it very difficult to talk about it with her husband's mother. Her eyes started to roll. Sasha. Violet. And I want Victor to find our moms to ask her to marry him. Hua. Huh. Anna and Ruby herself didn't understand. As expected. It's an oyakodon. Anna puts her hand to her head as if she has a bad headache. Zack takes this chance and runs away from Anna's lap. And no. That's not it. Sasha takes a deep breath and says it all at a fast pace. She meant that Victor traveled from Violet to Romania with the intention of asking our mothers for their blessings for our marriage. Sasha could embarrass most rap singers in the world with the speed she spoke those words. He traveled to Romania to meet his mother-in-law. Anna leans back on the couch. My son is growing up fast. Until a week ago he didn't even have a girlfriend. She looked like she reached enlightenment. Suddenly the women hear the door open. Honey. I'm home. Leon, Victor's father, spoke as he walked towards the living room. When he arrived in the room and saw two beautiful women, he suddenly stopped in shock and looked at his wife. Confused. Then, seeing the state of his wife, he was even more confused. What's going on here? Hello. Father-in-law. The two said. Huh. He opened his mouth in shock, unaware of the little chaos his wives were causing with his parents. Victor was at this point meeting his mother-in-law. Hey. She smiled seductively as she crossed her legs elegantly. My son-in-law. Were you so desperate to see me? I swallow a little dryly when I look at my mother-in-law. She really knew how to tease me with just a simple gesture. When I was going to answer her question, I heard the woman next to her saying, son-in-law. Looking at her, I see a woman with long red hair and eyes as red as Scathach. Who are you? I asked. Before the woman could say anything, I heard from Scathach. She is my eldest adopted daughter. Oh. Cool. Anyway. I lost interest. I look at my mother-in-law, who was wearing clothes that seemed to be glued to her curvy body. Why did you kidnap me? My mother-in-law's smile grew. She got up and walked towards me sensually. For a moment, I was mesmerized by those two mountains that looked unbearably soft. They were full, round, smooth, and perfectly shaped. She gently touched my face and spoke with the same sensual tone as if she were seducing me. You said it was a shame you weren't strong enough to fight me. Right. Slowly. My smile grew. And I nodded. Yes. We should fix that. Right. Her smile changed to a predator's smile that showed all her sharp teeth. Oh. Indeed. I smiled just like her. Oh fuck. She found another madman. I heard Sienna speak. But I ignored her. Scathach's smile changed to a satisfied smile. She took her hand away from my face and looked at a spot. Then she yelled. Pepper. Her voice seemed to resonate throughout the mansion. Yesh. I heard an awkward voice answering. Suddenly, a girl with long red hair, a curvy body, and breasts that seemed to rival Scathach appeared. She was just wearing a towel around her body. I've arrived. Mother. She put a hand to her head like a soldier. Good. She looked at me. And for a moment, she seemed to study my reaction. But, seeing me not reacting much, she seemed pleased with something. She is my youngest adopted daughter. As you may have heard. Her name is Pepper. Nice to meet you. She flashed a goofy grin on her face. Nice to meet you, I said in a neutral tone. For some reason, even though she was an attractive woman, I wasn't attracted to her. I felt that something was missing in her. Your initial training is simple. You must identify and learn to use your powers. Before she can finish, I open my hand. Suddenly, a fireball appears. Oh. She displayed a curious smile. Huh? Sienna exclaimed in surprise. Phew. Pepper looked surprised. The fire disappeared. And soon lightning began to crackle in my hand. Then the lightning disappeared. And soon a block of ice appeared in my hand. Even my mother's powers. Sienna said, looking at me. Ruby married someone interesting. I heard someone's voice. I looked to Sienna's side and saw Lacus smiling with a curious look. I point my hand in a direction that had no one and say, all blood belongs to me. But nothing happens. What are you trying to do? I heard Scathach asking. Her voice sounding heavier than usual. Give me a sec. What did I do? Remember the memory I got from Ruby. I close my eyes and try again. But I can't. Tisk. I can't get the right feeling to use that power. Suddenly, I heard a voice in my ear that shivered through my whole body. Victor. Don't be in a hurry. I look to the side and see Scathach's distorted smile. Her eyes were glowing red. And she was staring at me with a possessive face. You have all the time in the world to get better. She spoke with a seductive smile. You're right. Seeing that smile made my body shiver. I needed to fight her. Train the basics with Pepper. She may be an airhead. But she's strong. I will. I nod and pull my attention away from my mother-in-law and look at Pepper. I walk over to the woman and pick her up like a sack of potatoes. Kya. She yelled in a thin voice. What are you doing? You have to train me. Right. I'm kidnapping you. Great. He has the same attitude as my mom. Sienna said. But as usual, I ignored her. Huh. Before she can say anything, I put strength in my legs and run to an open spot that I saw with my eyes. When Victor left, Sienna asked her mother, is that all right? Scathach looked at her daughter. When Sienna saw Scathach's smile, she felt her entire body tremble in fear. Oh. About Pepper. It's all right. Victor is a good man. He won't do anything against Pepper. Sienna and Lacus opened their mouths looking like a fish who didn't know what to say. They were just too shocked. They had never seen their mother praise a man in their life before. You look happy. Mom, Lacus commented. Happy. Scathach spoke. Confused. Then she put her hand to her face. Maybe I am. Her smile changed to a seductive smile. I have something to do. I'll see you guys later. Scathach soon disappears. I think she's glad she found a man with potential. After all, she likes to fight. Lacus questioned. Is that what you think? Sienna asked as she looked at her sister. Yes. Lacus replied. She looked at her sister. What do you think? I don't know. But she wouldn't react so strongly if that man just had a big potential. The two sisters had many doubts in their heads. But one thing they were sure of. They were curious about the man who had piqued their mother's interest. My 3 wives are beautiful vampires. Chapter 37 Like mother. Like daughter. Chapter 37. Like mother. Like daughter. Violet's perspective. A few minutes before Victor woke up. Going through the portal, Violet realized she was at her house. Just as she was about to leave her house and look for Victor, she heard a cold voice. Lady Violet. You finally came home. She looks at the voice and sees a maid with short white hair and blue eyes. She was the personal maid and head maid of the Snow clan. Oh. It's you. Hilda. Anyway, I'm leaving. Violet starts running towards Scathach's mansion. She passes by Hilda's side. Wait. Hilda grabbed Violet by her shirt collar. Violet was almost hanged. Then she turns to face Hilda. Are you going to get in my way too? Seeing Violet's lifeless eyes, Hilda said coldly. Of course not. But as a maid, I have a duty to do. She started walking as she dragged Violet by her shirt collar. And my order was that when you came home, I should take you to meet your mother. Let go of me. I don't want to see that old woman. I'm going back to my darling. Violet tried to free herself from Hilda's grip. But it was a futile attempt. Hilda has stopped walking. She looks at Violet. Her blue eyes change to blood red. You did the ritual. Violet puts on a smug expression. Of course I did. But soon. Her expression crumbles. Although there were some unforeseen events. Oh. This is something your mother should know. Hilda started walking again. She pulled Violet and held her like a sack of potatoes. Violet began to struggle. Let go of me. Hilda ignored Violet and continued walking. In all the millennium I've served the Snow family, I've never seen anyone as reckless as you. Hilda puts a hand to her face as if she's thinking about something and keeps talking in the same cold tone. Coming to think about it, you have the same personality as your mother when she was younger. Although you are less aggressive than her. Annoying, Violet muttered angrily. Violet's body began to become covered in fire. Oh. Hilda looks at the fire in Violet's body. Your powers have grown stronger. That's good news. Hilda smacks Violet on the ass. Slap. Don't be a rude child. You know the rules. Right. She spoke in a cold tone as her eyes glowed red. Can't use powers indoors. Right. Violet snorted and continued. I haven't forgotten. Now. Let go of me. The only one who can hit my ass is my darling. Hilda sighed. I think it's because you're only 21 years old. And because of that, you're really spoiled. Soon she started walking. Violet got angry again. I'm already an adult by human standards. But to us, you're still a newborn baby. She looked around and even looked into her shadows. Where's Kagaya and Natalia? Shouldn't they be protecting you? Giving up on running away. For now. Violet sighed and said. Kagaya is protecting my darling. And Natalia stayed behind with Ruby and Sasha. The Fulgur heiress. And the Scarlet heiress. She puts her hand to her chin and continues. I heard they were in that town too. What happened to your darling? She asked in a neutral tone. He was kidnapped by Ruby's mother. Violet started to get angry again. Oh. Looks like Countess Scathach took an interest in your darling. Of course. She would be interested in him. He has great potential. She squealed proudly. Oh. Hilda displayed a small smile. Hilda enters a room. And then she puts Violet on the floor. Lady Agnes. Lord Adonis. I brought Lady Violet. Oh. Good job. Hilda. Violet looks at her mother. Who was sitting on a sofa. She was a curvaceous woman with big H-cup breasts and skinny legs. She had pale vampire skin and golden eyes. A very unusual eye color even for vampires. She had long white hair that reached to her waist and wore simple glasses. She was wearing black leather pants and a long black shirt. Are you still wearing those glasses? Mom. It's not like you have a vision problem. Violet commented. But I look good in glasses. Right. Violet's mother, Agnes, spoke with a narcissistic smile. Whatever. Violet snorted. Hey. You're still in the same bad mood. I thought meeting your darling would calm you down a bit. She sneered at the word darling. Violet, hearing the obvious tone of contempt, didn't like it one bit. Violet looks at her mom. And slowly her eyes begin to darken. What did you say? Bitch. Agnes's face distorted when she heard her daughter call her. Are you that attached to those cattle? Violet's eyes changed to blood red. And she looked at her own mother like she was about to jump her neck at any moment. Daughter. Don't fight with your mother in my room. Okay. She suddenly heard a gentle voice. Gentle as if blessed by heaven itself. Agnes. Don't tease our daughter. She's different from you. He spoke a little coldly as his eyes glowed a little violet. Humph. Agnes turned her face away. Violet ignores her mother. Then looks at the bed and sees a pale, frail-looking man with short white hair and violet eyes. Despite looking like a frail man, he still displayed a supernatural beauty that was far superior to any woman and man Violet had encountered. Violet thought, my dad is handsome. But my darling is prettier. But I'm a little jealous. I wish I had inherited just a little of that supernatural beauty. Violet looks at her mother's breast and thinks, I should have inherited those breasts too. Why are genes unfair? Violet was still a woman. She still had few insecurities. Especially now that Ruby had become Victor's wife. Adonis had a gentle expression on his face as he looked at his daughter. "Come here, daughter," he called her. Violet nodded and walked towards the bed. When she got closer to her father and saw how weak he was, she said, "Are you okay?" Although she didn't show it when Scathach asked in the past, she was still worried about her father. She was closer to him than her very narcissistic mother. He smiled gently. "Yes, I'm fine. I just need to drink blood. And I'll be brand new." "Liar," she whispered. "You always say that. But you never get better." "Ha ha ha." He laughed in a weak voice. He slapped the bed with a gesture for her to go up. "Come here. Tell me about your darling." Violet bites her lip. She wanted to talk to her father. But she wanted to find Victor first. Seeing his daughter's expression, he asked, "Are you worried about something? I need to see my darling. He is in danger." "Oh. Tell me what happened." Violet started to explain what happened to Victor. And without realizing it, she started talking more about Victor to her father. She climbed into bed and sat up. And soon she looked like a child who came home and told her father everything about her day. A few minutes later, Adonis laughed with a gentle smile. "He seems to be an interesting man. I would like to meet him in the future." "I will bring him in the future so you can meet him?" Violet asked excitedly. Seeing how excited his daughter was, he laughed a gentle laugh and asked, "Just out of curiosity, you didn't kidnap him, right?" Violet thought for a moment and replied, "Of course not." Good. As expected. You are very different from your mother." He sighed, relieved for himself and for Victor. "Hey. Why are you so happy?" Agnes, who was silent, asked with a pout. Adonis looked at Agnes and spoke in a dry tone. "Well, the experience of being kidnapped and raped for a whole month can hardly be forgotten no matter how long I live. She seems to have taken damage." But then she spoke angrily. "Just forget about it. That happened 1800 years ago. I'm not the same woman I was before." He flashed a gentle smile. "Indeed. You're no longer a crazy, psychopathic hedonist who did what you wanted." The woman's face just distorts several times, listening to what her husband was saying. He continued with the same gentle smile. "Now you're just a narcissistic woman. And because of that personality, our daughter doesn't like to talk to you." Agnes looks at Violet. "That's not true. Right? You like me, right?" Violet just turned her face away and ignored her mother. Agnes looked like she could cry at any moment. But Violet and Adonis didn't care. Adonis sighed and looked at Violet. And speaks with a fatherly smile. "Even though your mother is the way she is, I've learned to love her over the years." He said that, but inside, he was thinking, "I was beaten by Stockholm Syndrome and those breasts. Well, she's better than that bitch Aphrodite and Persephone." Sigh. "My life is a disaster. It's a sin to be born beautiful." Adonis was a bit narcissistic too. "Darling." Agnes looked at Adonis with possessive eyes. Seeing Agnes's gaze, he smiled a helpless smile. He promised never to tell anyone he liked the look his wife gave him. Feeling a sudden pain in his chest, Adonis displays the best smile he can muster and says, "It's time. I think you should find your darling." Violet's eyes flashed with possessiveness. And then she yelled, "Darling." Soon she ran towards the exit of the mansion. PFFT. He held back his laugh. But then he laughed gently. "Ha ha ha. I think she's a bit like you." Agnes. "Humph." Agnes snorted. But Adonis could see she had a gentle smile on her face. "I still don't agree with my daughter relating to cattle," she said grumpily. Adonis exhibited a gentle smile and said, "Oh. So I am cattle too. I see." Agnes' body shook. And she quickly said, "And no. You are different from those humans." "Oh. How am I different?" he asked curiously. Agnes' face glowed in possession. "You're mine, darling." Adonis just displayed an ironic smile. "My 3 wives are beautiful vampires." Chapter 38. Pepper is an airhead girl. A few minutes later, in the personal garden of Scathach's mansion. Despite calling it a garden, this place looked more like a forest than a garden. Cough. The girl in front of me pretended to cough. She massaged her throat a little. She was trying to thicken her voice. AAB. Testing. 1, 2. She looks at me with a serious face and speaks. My name is Pepper. As per my mother's orders. I'm responsible. I interrupted her. Aren't you going to change your clothes? Phew. She looked confused for a moment. She looked down and saw that she was still wearing a towel. Oh. Suddenly I hear a small explosion. And I see her face turning bright red. Then she disappears with surprising speed. At the same time that happens, my shadow expands. And soon Kagaya comes out of my shadow. Lord Victor. Oh. Kagaya. What happened? I asked as I stroked her head. She doesn't say anything and just stays silent. Feeling her black hair in my hand, I smile contentedly and say, while we wait for Pepper, do you have any training tips? Believe in yourself, she said. My smile threatened to break. Is that supposed to help me in any way? Noble vampires instinctively know how to use their powers when they are born. The only problem we have is controlling the output of our power. After all, depending on the noble vampire's bloodline, their power can reach absurd levels. I see. So you are born geniuses. I continued stroking her head. You are wrong. Kagaya spoke. She thought for a moment and continued. It's like a baby who instinctively knows how to cry or ask their mother for food. With our species, it's the same. We instinctively know how to use our power. The only problem we have is to control and improving that power to new levels. I see. I understood what she said. It's like moving your arm. You know instinctively how to move your body. Right. It's basically something like that. Suddenly, I see a red silhouette. And soon I see that Pepper has returned wearing new clothes. She's wearing a red uniform and black tights. She looks at me with her face a little embarrassed. Let's continue. She intends to ignore everything that happened. Okay. I said as I stopped stroking Kagaya's hair. Cough. She coughed again and explained in a cute voice. Let's skip the basics. After all, you already know what your unique powers are. So what we're going to do today is learn to control the basic powers of a vampire. What do you mean? I asked. Confused. It's something like this. She looks like she's going to demonstrate something. She looks at a tree in the distance and says, pay attention. I'll just run, normal. Pepper suddenly positions herself. Her body starts to be covered by a fog. And she disappears and then reappears in front of the tree. And soon she returns to the same position again. See. This is a basic skill for all vampires. As creatures of the night, we can blend into the night easily. What I've demonstrated now is fog walking. That was cool. Can all vampires do this? Despite speaking in a neutral voice, my eyes were gleaming with curiosity. Yes. It's a basic skill. This time, Kagaya answered me. The basic vampire skills are fog walking, bat transformation, night vision, and claws, she said. She points her hand at me. And I see her hand has changed. Her nails have gotten sharper and more deadly. And her hand has seemed to grow stronger. Pepper looks at Kagaya with a pout on her face. Kagaya just looks at Pepper with a stoic look. Pepper puffed out her chest in annoyance. Boing. Boing. And they swayed like crazy. For a moment, I see Kagaya's black eyes turning blood red. She looks annoyed at something. Soon Pepper goes on to explain. Noble vampires usually ignore these basic abilities and focus only on the powers they inherited from their parents. For example, she pointed to Kagaya. This maid. She has the power to control the shadows. And using those powers, she modified the basic vampire abilities to fit her power. I remember Kagaya's fight with Mizuki. And I nod in agreement. She seemed to walk in the shadows in that fight. Oh. Do you know Kagaya? I asked. Curious. Yes. She was always around when Violet came to visit Ruby. Why doesn't Lacus know Kagaya? Lacus. She's really lazy. She just stays asleep and only wakes up when something interesting happens. She looked uncomfortable for some reason. Because of that, she doesn't know the people who visit our house. Oh, I didn't know what to say. This seemed to be a family issue. Something like having a child who is a neat. She looks at me with neutral eyes. Then continues. Why don't you try to get used to the basic powers first? Try to use your basic vampire powers. And when you get used to them, we'll train the powers you were born with. Why should we train these powers if they aren't used a lot? I asked with genuine doubt. After all, I haven't seen my wives using these powers. My mother always said that the basics are the most important. You need a strong foundation to build the pillars for your strength in the future. I'll try. That sounds interesting too. I feel like those men in the comics who are discovering their powers. I position myself to run. And before I can do anything, I heard Kagaya warning me. Remember Lord Victor. Don't use your unique powers. Just use your racial powers. I know. I just have to turn into mist. Right. Yes. She confirmed. Let's try. Pepper said I must know how to use this ability instinctively. I close my eyes and think of the image of Pepper running, focusing on what I should do. Then, I open my eyes. And I try to imitate what Pepper did. I put some strength in my legs and run towards the tree. Lacus and Sienna, who were drinking tea, suddenly hear an explosion as if a lightning bolt has fallen to the ground. Boom. What is it? It is not raining. Lacus was startled by the sudden noise. Sienna just looks at her sister with a neutral expression. She drinks the tea, which contains a red drink, and explains. The noise came from the garden. I think it's our mother's guest. Sienna stopped talking when she saw Lacus had left. She sighs. She's too rushed. Pepper and Kagaya heard an explosion as if lightning had fallen to the ground. And soon after, they saw the tree destroyed and in pieces. Then, fire started to come out of Victor's body. And soon he slammed his body into a rock. Well, I knew it would happen. But the destruction is bigger than I expected. Kagaya commented. Wawawa. The forest is on fire. Pepper was freaking out. Kagaya hits Pepper on the head. Ouch. She puts her hand to her head and looks at Kagaya with a face that could cry at any moment. What? Why did you hit me? Calm down. And use your powers. Kagaya spoke. Suddenly, Pepper's expression lit up. Oh. Pepper steps on the ground. The ground broke with the force she put in. And soon a massive amount of water started coming out of the cracks. She points her finger at the forest and yells. EY. The water she was controlling rises to the skies and began to fall into the forest as if the place were raining. As a surprising display of control, Pepper just doused the spreading fire. Good job. Kagaya said. Hehehehe. She laughed as she scratched her head. Kagaya uses her speed and runs towards Victor. Seeing that Kagaya is gone, Pepper follows her example and uses her speed. Lord Victor. Didn't I tell you not to use your powers? Kagaya asked. I didn't try to use my powers. Victor muttered as he got up from a crater that was more than 1 km wide. He didn't seem to be hurt. Then, realizing he was wet with water, fire started to come out of his body. And soon he was dry again. He looks at his clothes and thinks. These clothes are amazing. They are quite resistant. Kagaya looks at the ground around Victor and sees that the soil was filled with small pieces of ice. Maybe. She seemed to be thinking of something. I tried to run like Pepper. But for some reason, it happened. He pointed at the crater. Phew. Pepper looked surprised. She looked around and said. You tried to run like me and created this giant crater? She asked with an expression of shock. Pepper. What was that noise? Lacus suddenly arrives. And she looks around. Wow. This is big. Lord Victor. Can you do something for me? Yes. What is it? Victor replied in a neutral tone. Follow me. Kagaya said and started to run. Victor started following Kagaya. And soon Pepper and Lacus, who were curious about what was going to happen, began to follow as well. Kagaya stops in front of an ordinary tree. See that tree? I want you to pull the tree out of the ground and throw the tree in a random direction. Victor didn't understand the purpose of this. But he did as Kagaya asked. Victor approaches the tree trunk and puts his hand gently on it. Somehow, he can instinctively sense that using one hand was enough. So he pulls the tree out of the ground and lifts it with ease. He looks at an empty spot and throws the tree. Everyone watched the tree that was suddenly frozen in the air. When the tree fell to the ground and broke the ice around it, a fire started to be created. And soon lightning fell from the sky. As expected, Kagaya seems to have figured something out. This is bullshit. Lacus suddenly yelled in frustration. She looked like she was freaking out. Phew. Pepper was startled by the sudden scream. Victor puts his hand to his ear. Why are you screaming? Woman. Lacus looks at Victor. Don't you understand what you just did? Victor looked at Lacus confused. I threw the tree. And suddenly it turned to ice. When the ice fell to the ground started to catch fire. And suddenly lightning fell from the sky even though there were no clouds in the sky. He explained what he saw aloud. Lacus just looked at Victor with an expression that said she didn't believe what she was seeing in front of her.